At 7 o'clock, I'd like to call to order the Plan Commission meeting for Thursday, November 6th. Do we have discussion and possible action on the October 23rd meeting minutes?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Discussion and possible action on review and consideration to extend the conditional use permits for Wiseway motor freight terminals at 1300 Industrial Street and 1400 Swassey Street and adjacent parking lot. Denny?
The conditional use permit for Wiseway Motor Freight was initially approved in 1996 and 1997 and 1999 as there were additions to the motor freight operations. Renewals were made in 2000, 2001, 2003, 2006. And there's a 4-year review and then an additional 4-year review which brought it to this year, 2014. The original conditions were retention, maintenance of the required berm and landscaping on the north and west sides of the site, and required perimeter fencing, no on-site parking of cabs and trailers, no advertising of sale or sales of trucks. We've had no issues. We've never received a complaint or had an issue with the Wiseway Motor Freight operations. I'm recommending continuance of the conditional use permit with the conditions. However, I would not recommend that we place a review date. So we've had this going on for a period of time. They've had a good track record and demonstrated to us that they can stay within the conditions of the approval. And we always have the right, if they would be in violation, to set up a public hearing, go through the procedures, and then we would be able to deal with it at that time. But I really don't see a necessity to have a review period after a set period of time again.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Under those conditions.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item 4, discussion and possible action on review and consideration to extend a conditional use permit for Mills Fleet Farm Garden Center, 1001 Industrial Street. Denny.
The conditional use permit for the outdoor seasonal sales area and temporary structures was originally approved in 2003. And this is for the garden center. Was reviewed again in 2006, 2009, and then had a 5-year review period, which brings it to November 2014. The original conditions were retention, maintenance of the required, the garden center is allowed to be open from April 15th to July 15th of each year. The compliance of the fire inspector's memorandum of 1/2013, the major issue of that memorandum was that there was a heating unit that may be necessary in propane, and that the fire department have the right to inspect that at any time, make sure they're in compliance. Again, they've had this conditional use permit since for 11 years. Do not see a need to set a date for review, but would keep the dates of April 15th to July 15th operations, and also to stay in compliance with the fire inspector's memorandum.
Okay. A motion for?
I'll move to, as Danny says, open-ended, no review unless they bring it to our attention for some reason.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Discussion and possible, we're on number 5, Pat. Discussion and possible action on concept development plans at 720 First Street Lofts project with 6 residential units and underground parking.
This proposed project is located at 720 First Street. That's the existing residential house just north of the library. Police department accesses to and from First Street. What's being proposed by Mr. Kroll is 6 residential loft units, underground parking for 12 cars, outside parking for additional 4 cars. However, I do have some concern about one of those parking spaces, and I think with some tweaking we can improve to make sure that that's a usable space. Generally, the City staff issues were tied into utilities. They were proposing a 4-inch sanitary sewer versus suggesting 6-inch sanitary sewer. They've agreed to that. There's some storm drainage issues. This building will have a proposed roof garden. Basically, it's about, what, Dennis, about 2/3 of the area on the roof is would be in green space considerations or more. So in general, the general concept of the project, I recommend approval. Dennis Crow and Mr. Roger Humphrey are here tonight to represent the project, and I turn the floor over to Dennis. Dennis, you have some presentation boards you'd like to set up and go over the project. And generally, from the architectural standpoint, what Dennis is trying to achieve with this development is the architectural style would reflect what the current library police station is. It'd be very similar type of architectural style, so it would complement the existing building in the neighborhood. So I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Dennis Crow.
Greets. Thanks for your volunteer service, by the way, coming out and spending time here, checking, making sure that we're doing the right things. Anyhow, the concept here, I had this land for about 10 years, and I actually like living and working in my little house there a lot. And it'd be nice in a way if I could make sense out of redoing that as in some way. There is no access to the land right now. I take up one of Norlake's spaces with their good grace. I have permission to go through their lot, and it cuts up one of their spaces basically. But there is no access to that land, to my land. So I can't build a garage or anything like this. And I could dig out underneath the house and come under there. Anyhow, the house doesn't have any, doesn't have good foundations, and it's kind of, it's been added on to many times, and I think it's probably time to do something different, some bigger, some improvements anyhow. And the concept of live and work seemed to fit me well. And some of the people that I've talked to also, people that have smaller businesses. One of the problems with small businesses is that if you try to, well, it's just flexibility. If you give somebody, if somebody says they'll be able to fit into 3,000 square feet, they will fit in there for a while, and a little while later they'll have to rent out part of it, or they'll be looking for other space to expand into, and it's always a problem. So flexibility in in smaller businesses is really important. Anyhow, so live work is in these is the idea, and also we're trying to do something that fits in with the surroundings, with the, as Danny mentioned, with the library, the rock, the St. Croix River rock, and actually the zinc, which the zinc siding on the bluish kind of siding, which I suspect that was actually inspired by my little old house, the blue siding on it. It does turn out that zinc is a very, very good material for long lasting, and it can be recycled and that kind of thing. Trying to do something that is what we're thinking is sustainable architecture. Anyhow, this is kind of jumping ahead. You guys don't have the landscape plan yet, and we can talk about that next time. But there's in general, it has been planned where we have a garden, kind of private gardens in the back, kind of little Japanese garden and pond that is actually a retention pond for some of the water. The green roof is the purpose of it is to keep the building cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter, and to actually act as some water retention, some retention for water to mitigate, like rain gardens are. Anyhow, the rain gardens are planned around the back, well, along with a small pond, which is really a retention pond too. Underground parking, there's 2 spaces per unit plan, and bicycle parking. And this is a meeting room and lobby. This courtyard in the front was always thought of as a kind of a mitigation between the street and the building, but a place that we'd have a small water kind of fountain, some plantings. The building is kind of designed to respect this tree that has been there for longer than I have, and which I think is kind of an interesting feature on the site, and I think should be saved.
Before you leave, the outdoor parking, which is in front of the building towards First Street, they're proposing pervious pavers, so that it'll assist with storm drainage and best management practices of storm drainage.
Yeah, it's another way of slowing down some of that runoff anyhow. The building, as we've been thinking about it, is a combination of fiber cement stone on the base that fits in with the library building, and this zinc on the top and on the stair tower here. This is, let's see, got one more kind of a sketch of it. The colors are meant to complement and to kind of fit in with that. And as you can see here, the scale is about the same. The height here is about 44 to 45, and this is 45 at the very top to have some access, some stair access actually to the upper part. These are screen porches, and each of these units has as much exposure as possible to the riverside. So driving underground parking and this entry area is on this side, and you can see a little pond there. So, anything else?
I visited with Roger Humphreys, the project engineer, and I visited with Roger a little bit before the meeting. Their proposed retaining wall in the front is into the public right-of-way, so if that's the case, we need to negotiate easement for that. Otherwise, Roger mentioned that instead of it's right, the retaining wall is not meant to retain something. It's meant to provide separation from the sidewalk area to the front courtyard area and off-street parking. So there may be ways of reducing that in area that it may be able to fit a little bit better with the right-of-way. So it's something that that we'd like to work with them in regard before the final development plans are submitted to try to make that fit just a little bit better.
And just a couple things on that, Danny. There's existing right now a retaining wall that's about 5 feet in height all along the edge of the back edge of the existing sidewalk. As you go north to the North Lake property, there's a retaining wall there as well, and so that's in that same line. And so to move it back or something would look kind of a little different there too. But of course, we're willing to work with the city on any aspect that they'd have concerns about.
I have a question. I mean, I see the lot is 67 feet wide basically, and I see it's zoned business district. Are the setbacks and all that where they need to be or proper? Or, I mean, and then I guess I also have to ask, I mean, the purpose of the building appears to be residential.
It's live and work. But
Living.
a combination of.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I mean, based on that, that's why I'm asking the
Yeah,
question.
well, yeah. The answer to your first question, Fred, is that this is zoned for B3 Central Business District, so that's 0 lot line, front yard, side yards, 25-foot setback on the rear yard. They're at approximately 45 feet on the rear yard setback. So they're well in compliance with the setback standards, the height. They're allowed 45 feet from the average grade elevation of where the footprint of the building is proposed. They're also compliant with the Nation Scenic Riverways in regards to that. So from a setback, zoning, off-street parking requirements, they're in full compliance.
I just had to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
It looks like a good project.
Looks very nice.
Thank you.
Roger, you saw Tom Sifko's, our city engineer's
Yeah,
comments, and
Yeah, and I replied to him this morning, and we didn't really see any issues. In fact, we went along with his recommendations on the sewer and water and the connection activities there. But generally speaking, those comments were pretty straightforward, and you know, it's a small site. There's not a lot that's going on here, but you know, we're certainly taking care of what the stormwater drainage. We are kind of coming around both sides of the building, but by capturing most of the stormwater with the roof, flat roof grates, you know, whatever falls on the existing site and comes around on both sides of the building is much smaller than what goes around the house right now, because we're catching that into a pipe and actually discharging that out. Yes, sir.
Well, one last question. You said in front you're gonna put the pervious pavers. What happens when it freezes?
Well, couple things. One is even on our 100-year rainfall event, our basic assumption is none of these things are working, and you know, we only have about 1.7 cubic feet per second coming off the site on a 100-year event, which is really not much water. So in the wintertime, when it does freeze, you know, it acts like just regular pavement surfaces, that type of thing. But when it does thaw, then you know, the main purpose of, I think, of permeable pavers is to capture that first flush of rainfall, which is where most of the pollutants in the rainwater exists. And through the summer months, you'll get quite a bit of that activity with that, plus along with the rain gardens proposed.
I was just curious, you know, if there was, you know, other drainage other than just the pervious pavers, because if it did freeze, it could potentially build up if it couldn't drain or.
It kind of acts just, yeah, it kind of acts just like regular pavement. You know, you shovel it, and you know, you can use de-icing and other things that you might have to do too.
Thank you.
another, you know, the consideration of permeable pavers is that they have to be maintained, they have to be kept clean so the system doesn't clog. So, you know, we'll require them to have a maintenance program that's filed so so we know that they're gonna maintain that.
I haven't always been a fan of those because of that issue, but I think in this location, it's pretty isolated in a fairly small area from that aspect.
Well, I can think of a lot of other things to put there, and none of them seem as attractive in my mind anyhow, as some kind of pavers. And if you're gonna do that, then why not hold water?
Well, I like what you're doing, I just wanted to make sure it worked.
Oh,
And that people weren't falling on their Easter, you know, in the middle of the winter or something like that, because it turned all ice and turned into a skating rink. So that's why I'm asking
no,
that.
City staff, we have both our city engineer and then also our one of our consulting engineers who's a little more specializing in storm drainage is taking a close look at this proposal and working with Roger to address the issues.
I'm fine.
I think that we can actually, you know, really afford to put a little bit more maintenance into that because we're doing such low landscape maintenance, you know, like no lawn mowing. You know, I can't think. Anyhow, hopefully it will work economically on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I recommend approval with city staff recommendations.
Okay, do we have I'll make that motion to, as Denny is recommending.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Discussion Discussion and possible action on development plans for a two-story covered porch entrance addition to Pudge's Bar, 302 2nd Street. Mike is here, and Denny, go ahead.
The proposed covered porch area is on the south side of Hudson Bar. It's adjacent to the existing parking area. There is it's generally 12-foot north-south dimensions by 65 feet. The westerly half of the proposed porch area will be for outdoor seating, and the easterly half primarily be for access, both staircase and elevator access to the building. Mr. Mike Murphy is here tonight, along with Mr. Dan Gleason, to discuss the proposal. On your tables tonight is a colored rendering of the proposal. I think it very well illustrates what's being proposed by Mr. Murphy. So Mike or Dan, would you like to kind of quickly review the proposal with us?
He lacks having a kitchen.
Well, Dan's the architect, so I just come up with the ideas.
Well, Michael, you want me to?
Go ahead,
Michael's
yeah.
trying to put it wants to put this addition, which doesn't take any parking away, and it fits, we have about 17 feet to spare actually with double loaded parking in this lot, so we can easily fit something really spectacular as you approach and come up with great marketing tool for him. To expand his business, this is part of an expansion inside too, where he's taking which you're not really concerned with, I suppose, but it's we have a lot of zone issues and code issues and some structural modifications to do a different whatever you want to call it, we call it assembly occupancy on the second floor, where they'll have a bar and drinks and a game room.
Excuse me, Dan. I just want to explain to him. We are taking our downstairs and putting in a full kitchen because, and the reason for that is when we put on the patio 4 years ago, we found that lots of people were stopping and they wanted more than just pizzas or sandwiches that we provided. So, so we've been thinking about this for years, and so we're going to have a full kitchen. So, but I don't want to lose my game room area, so we're going to move that up to the upstairs, which necessitated all of this. And since we're kind of the first building really coming into downtown of the restaurant, bar, retail area, and it's kind of funny because we often answer our phone, Pudge's Bar, gateway to historic downtown Hudson. So I really want to make our place, because of the other stuff that I'm doing on the block, really stand out as a good greeting facility in downtown historic Hudson. So, so I think when people come into town, this will really be a showcase. And it's all necessitated because stairwell. Because if we would have just put a stairway on one half the building, it would have just looked like an afterthought. And so we came up with this that I think will, half of it's just staircase. So, any questions?
And Dan, maybe you want to explain the architectural features, why this type of architecture was chosen?
Well, you're part of the great Mississippi River and the great town of Hudson, which is, has one of the most classic turn of the century buildings remaining in it, and you can tell, you know, I'm not a native of Hudson, but I was surprised coming in tonight, the place is alive, you know, there's cars, I couldn't get a parking spot in the whole place.
Don't bring up parking, Dan.
Go over to First Street. There's
I'll
lots
repeat,
of
we've
them now.
just created 68 more parking spots.
Yes, there's plenty of parking down there, you just gotta find it.
We want to do something spectacular really here and to tie in with this whole river feeling and the town of Hudson. And it's a fun place. We're in the hospitality business, so the architecture is reflective of that, and while keeping some of the tradition alive. And part of his improvement too, I think, which is very worthy, is the whole replacement of the terrible front that's on there now.
No offense.
Maybe you didn't notice on the way into town, Dan, I did tear that down the other day.
That will be cleaned, and with new cornice work, and actually tin work in the classical timber from some of the original molds we have looked into that will go here and here, and some nice awnings that suit this sort of thing. And then some storefront, to restore the storefront somewhat to what it was. Some new pilasters, that are cast iron pilasters along the front.
So essentially, they're restoring the front to pretty much the way it was originally, so which is very positive.
I love it.
I think it's great.
I think it looks like New Orleans that was the
Yeah.
first thing I said, I think is pretty cool, so.
And the seating for the porch areas, there'd be approximately 27 seats per floor. Now, the porch area, you look at this, you can kind of go, how big is that? Well, the porch area, if you took from the end of the tables to the back of the room and half of the room, that's the area. So it's not a large, it's only about 700 square feet per floor, so it's not a real large area.
But in the count, we have to, from my point of view, we have to allow 5 square feet per person, so I doubt there'll ever be that many in there. But that's the maximum.
Approximately, yeah.
We have to design it to support that load of people.
So I'm recommending approval.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, it's a great job.
Nice
I
job,
think
Mike.
Thank you.
Just wonderful,
Thanks.
Yeah, it's great. Killer.
so, thank you. You're welcome, thank you. Okay, is there any other business for, or for informational purposes for an upcoming agenda?
Our next meeting is November 20th. We have a couple of public hearings. One of them will be for the proposed winery, which would be located, if it's approved, just north of budget, so
That it?
that's all.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.